Good Sunday afternoon to the world, number one, to the Afro-descendant population throughout the world, spread throughout the world, and specifically to my fellow residents and citizens of Gaston County, North Carolina. I won't take up much of your time. I know Carolina Panthers got a game coming on at 1 o'clock against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm just going to say keep pounding. Yeah, Tepper needs to hire Steve Wilkes. But what I wanted to just give is a quick update, and actually also a thank you to those who supported me throughout my false arrest for picketing and parading on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Gastonia, North Carolina, right in front of the county courthouse, which had been the subject of protests and debates about the First Amendment for almost 2 years. When you go back to the public meetings the commissioners, Gaston County commissioners held on whether or not people can protest a Confederate racist monument on public property or not. And, they passed a little ordinance saying that you can have up to 25 people, but once you have 25 people, you have to let the sheriff's department know, which it was the Gaston County Sheriff's Department, which was seeking to restrict our First Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution and our rights under the North Carolina Constitution. I actually had written down all of the North Carolina Article 1 sections that related to my false arrest. But as someone said, this is more than just about my arrest, my false arrest on that day. But in case you didn't know, the charges were dismissed. The arrest happened months ago. The charges were dismissed on Wednesday is when I went to court. And so, yeah, I want to thank those who did show me some support, particularly Pam Morgenstern with the Democratic Party, her and who else was that? Mike Ross, who's affiliated with the Libertarian Party. They came to my first appearance where, again, I observed some things that there's an issue. And these are things that need to be discussed that's happening in Gaston County, let alone 14th Amendment violations and plus the equal protection under the law section of the North Carolina Constitution. When you're pushing black protesters off a public space that others just weeks before or in the weeks leading up to, and when I say others, I mean the predominantly white activists who were out there on the behalf of the veteran Joshua Rohr, who was arrested by Gastonia City Police, who accused him of panhandling. So they had been protesting in that space for weeks. But again, this goes back to George Floyd's murder, and then the protests that occurred here on just shining the spotlight on a number of issues like police brutality as well as systemic racism, no more symbolized in a Confederate statue, a hero's memorial to some racist people who were willing to give their lives for the institution of slavery. And so, that's what was going on back in 2020. And then, these issues got litigated democratically, you would say, with these commissioner meetings, these citizens coming up and speaking up, because you really don't have no rights unless you exercise those rights. And there are those who will try to deny you those rights, like were denied to every single activist who was out there protesting for the body cam footage for the murder of Jason Lipscomb. And I say murder confidently because I saw the ring door camera. I saw the footage from that. And so, again, I just want to thank those who showed support for the First Amendment, but it shouldn't end here. It is not going to end here. And what I really want to also say is shame on the quote unquote leadership in Gaston County. None of these public officials. I've been to the Gaston County commissioners now. You passed the ordinance recognizing the community's right to protest in that space at the courthouse but trying to balance safety concerns where you put a limit on, you only have to notify the sheriff's department who's charged with security of the courthouse if it's going to be a protest involving 25 or more people. Well, that day, it was really only two people who were vocalizing any kind of organized protest. That was Lydia and Brooklyn. It was really them who were protesting. Then others came and joined later. And again, as I've always maintained, I was there as a member of the press, because having press coverage, documenting this type of stuff is very important. And that's why, I created the Black Talk Media Project. And so I just really want to call out the so-called leadership. You got a black mayor who took a picture, who won an award, the MLK Award, which this private Gaston County group created, and they put your name up on this little thing at the corner of MLK Junior Boulevard, whatever the name of the street is, right across from the courthouse. This man took a picture. Yes, I'm talking about you, Mayor Reed. You took a picture like you embody all the principles and the courage of Dr. King, but yet you remain silent. Even when members of the Libertarian Party, who are citizens, came to a Gastonia City Council and raised the concern about not just my arrest, but the treatment of the black protester. These were white men acknowledging the mistreatment of black protesters because they had protested themselves and were treated quite hospitably. But when it came to black protesters, and then for the mayor of this city, a black man who won an MLK award, not to say anything, or any of the members of the Gastonia, because I was arrested on the Gastonia City street. Black protesters were pushed off of Gastonia City street by members of the county sheriff's department. So, I mean, there's even jurisdictional issues, but when citizens raised this concern, y'all said nothing. As you usually do, as with the commissioners, you say nothing. Going back to the commissioners, y'all said nothing. All this stuff was covered by the local record of paper, paper of record, I should say, and videos. Again, I was there as a member of the press, and I had up to an hour of footage, and more footage even after I was arrested, as I passed the camera off to my daughter, who was also a victim along again with the other protesters who were denied their free speech rights and treated differently than the predominantly white protesters, some of who have shown solidarity. Okay, so for the so-called leadership in this county to say nothing about these things, not even write a letter to the editor, not even to just say whether or not you comment on a pending criminal, matter, but for you to speak in general of the need to protect First Amendment speech rights. Okay, none of you said nothing, and let alone we might as well not even have a NAACP in this county because they do nothing. Chris Thomason, you do nothing. You said nothing. You didn't reach out to me. You know my contact information. We know some of the same people. The job of the NAACP Gaston County should be to document these sort of things. Look at these 14th Amendment violations. Speak out on the injustices. Use the bully pulpit that this organization historically has built up. And you do nothing, you say nothing. It's just unacceptable. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But there's a lot of things that need to change in Gaston County. And if that means changing, taking several avenues to achieve that change, then I'm telling you, we need to take those steps. But again, my charges were dismissed. But that says nothing of all the victims who were out there that day. And I feel like they deserve a redress, or we deserve a redress of our grievances. So that's all for now. That's all I wanted to share. All right. Peace and blessings to y'all. Go Panthers. Keep pounding.